Sheriff Eleanor Price responds to a late-night 911 call from a remote lake house, her husband's private retreat. Inside, she finds Amy Lowell, his assistant, barely alive, and Deputy Chief Marcus Hale, her husband, standing over her. In that moment, everything collapses. 10 shots ring out, one man falls. But the truth Ellie uncovers, after the smoke clears, is far darker than she ever imagined. With the help of Detective Raquel Vega and a missing girl named Chloe Harris, the pieces begin to form a twisted puzzle no one was ready for. What would you do if the man you loved turned out to be the monster you were sworn to stop? Sheriff Eleanor Price blinked at the alarm screen of her phone. 2:14 a.m. The dispatcher's voice cracked through the speaker, tight and uneasy. Unit 3 Bravo, we've got a 911 disconnect. Female caller, screaming heard, then silence. Address is 1186 Maple Ridge Drive. Ellie's heart skipped. That address, Marcus's lake house, her husband's private getaway outside city limits. She didn't wait. No backup call, no protocol. She was already pulling her service boots on, sliding her Glock into its holster. Marcus hadn't been home for 2 days, said he needed time to decompress, clear his head after the homicide case last week. Ellie hadn't questioned it. She should have. Cold wind slapped her face as she exited the house. Fog hugged the highway like a ghost. Her cruiser's headlights cut through the dark like knives. Every mile between her and that lake house tightened a noose in her chest. As she pulled onto the gravel driveway, her pulse thundered. Marcus's black SUV was parked at an angle, engine running, driver's door wide open. Unease turned to dread. She stepped out, flashlight up, gun drawn. The house loomed ahead, its windows glowing faintly. No signs of forced entry, no sounds, only the hum of the engine behind her. The door was unlocked. The scent hit her first, copper sweat and something sour. Then her boot slid slightly on the hardwood floor. Blood. The beam of her flashlight swept across the living room. Shattered glass, a toppled lamp, a chair lying sideways. The silence was screaming now. Then movement. In the far corner of the room, a figure huddled, barely visible, curled in on herself, arms wrapped around her knees. Ellie's breath caught. Amy Lowell. Her face was almost unrecognizable, swollen, bleeding, eyes glassy with terror. Amy looked up slowly. "Help me," she rasped. A sound behind Ellie. She spun. There he was. Marcus stood barefoot, shirtless, his chest heaving. Blood streaked his arms. His expression was unreadable. Part rage, part shame, part something else, something feral. They locked eyes. "What did you do?" she said, voice cracking, trembling. "She wouldn't stop," he said, stepping forward. "She kept digging. She found what raised her weapon." "Don't." "She found what?" Marcus. His lips twitched. "You don't want to know." He took another step. Ellie didn't feel her finger move, didn't remember making the decision. But suddenly the room echoed with violence. Bang, 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 each shot slamming into the man she once trusted with her life. He fell. Silence returned. Amy whimpered in the corner, the only sound left in the nightmare Ellie had just walked into. 1 week earlier, the ballroom shimmered with soft chandeliers and the muted clink of crystal glasses. The annual Aspen Law Enforcement Gala brought out every badge-polished smile, every tailored suit hiding worn-out hearts. Eleanor Price stood at Marcus's side, her arm looped neatly through as they looked perfect. That was the performance. Ellie knew how to fake ease, how to tuck a dozen questions behind a single smile. Marcus Hale was magnetic that night, every inch the rising star of Colorado law enforcement. He shook hands like a senator, made speeches like a preacher, but it was the way he touched Amy Lowell that made Ellie's stomach knot. The hand he placed on her lower back lingered too long. The whisper in her ear made her flinch, even as she forced a polite nod. Amy wore a navy blue dress that covered every inch of her, but she looked like she wanted to disappear into the walls. Later that evening, as they returned to their house in Boulder, Ellie waited until the door shut behind them. She leaned on the kitchen counter, arms crossed. Her voice was quiet, but cut like steel. You've crossed a line with Amy. Marcus looked at her like she was a child accusing him of stealing cookies. You're jealous. That's what this is. Glass clinked as he poured himself whiskey. You always were dramatic. Then came the silence, and then the explosion. The glass in his hand hurled across the kitchen, shattering against the backsplash. He didn't say another word. He didn't have to. The air between them said it all. Ellie stared at the shards on the floor and saw a reflection of her own broken knowing. That was the night Ellie realized she didn't sleep beside a stranger. She slept beside a secret. Now standing in the lake house after 10 shots, that secret had spilled all over the floor. Backup was still minutes away. Amy lay curled near the fireplace, barely able to move, whispering something over and over. Ellie knelt beside her, her voice shaking. What did he do to you? The words didn't register at first. Ellie froze, but others. Amy looked up, her eyes wide with something ancient. Trauma, memory, horror, she asked, already rising to her feet. Amy's weak hand pointed toward the basement door. Ellie descended the narrow staircase with her flashlight flickering, sweat clinging to her back. The smell grew heavier, mold, dust, something metallic. At the bottom, the darkness swallowed her, until her light caught something. A cabinet, locked. The key hung from a chain nailed into the wall. Inside the cabinet were 3 boxes. In the first, Polaroids. Young women, bound, bruised, their faces smeared with blood and mascara. All of them terrified, most of them unknown. In the second, cassette tapes, each labeled with dates and initials. In the third, belts, zip ties, ropes. One belt had the initials CH carved into the leather. Chloe Harris. Ellie knew that name. A case from 2 years ago. A runaway. No leads. It was Marcus who had signed off on the final report. The floor seemed to drop beneath her. Her husband wasn't just an abuser. He was a predator. A calculating, methodical, patient monster. And Ellie had slept beside him for 12 years. 3 days after the shooting, the walls of the Internal Affairs conference room closed in like a trap. Ellie sat at the long steel table, wrists folded neatly in front of her. She had worn civilian clothes, no badge, no gun, just a pale gray sweater, and the stare of a woman who hadn't truly slept in days. Across from her sat 5 men and 1 woman, all part of the Denver Police Department's Internal Review Board. None of them looked at her like a hero. No one said thank you. They weren't here to ask why she shot her husband. They were here to ask why it took so long. They began with protocol violations. Why she entered the property without backup. Why she didn't wait for confirmation. Why she fired 10 rounds. Why none of those rounds went to disarm. Why the final 3 were in his back. As he collapsed, Ellie listened, nodded. She answered with precision. He was advancing toward me. I identified myself. I issued a command. He refused to stop. He was your husband, one of them said, as if that made him immortal. Yes, Ellie replied, and he was about to kill her. They questioned her objectivity, her emotional state, suggested she may have acted in rage or betrayal, that her personal connection impaired her judgment. She opened her bag and laid the Polaroids on the table, one by one. Then the recordings, then the logbook. The air shifted. No one spoke for a full minute. Finally, someone cleared their throat. These materials were not recovered through official warrant. Ellie didn't flinch. He was my husband. That house was half mine. You want a warrant? Get one. But the blood on those belts is real, and the names in that log. Go call their families. Still, the panel refused to call it justice. To them it was a technical mess, a tangled wreck of marriage, abuse and vigilante decisions. She didn't expect more from them, not here. After the hearing, in the stairwell behind the building, a voice stopped her. Raquel Vega, detective, friend, ghost from the academy years. Vega pressed a manila folder into her hands. He had a second cabin, Wyoming border. Records show a utilities bill paid under his cousin's name. You need to see it. Ellie opened the folder. Inside were photos of a snow-covered shack, blueprints, missing persons reports. Most of the names matched initials from Marcus's logbook. Why are you showing me this? Ellie asked. Because they're not going to keep looking, Vega said. They think it ended with his death. Ellie looked at the images again, then at the road. It didn't end. It barely began. 3 months later, the courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. Reporters lined the bench. Protesters outside waved signs, some calling her a murderer, others calling her a savior. The DA had gone forward with the indictment. 10 rounds, no pause. They said it was excessive force, that she should have waited. That grief clouded her judgment. Amy Lowell testified in person. She walked to the stand slowly, one hand still braced with a bandage. Her voice was hoarse but steady. He was going to kill me, she said, and he had done it before. I found the evidence, and I told him. He said I wouldn't live to talk to anyone else. If Sheriff Price hadn't arrived when she did, I wouldn't be here. Ellie watched the jury. Some looked away. Some stared at her like they had never truly seen a woman with a gun and grief in the same breath. The defense laid it out plainly. The evidence found, the recording, the missing girls. The law may not have moved fast enough, but Ellie did. And sometimes, they said, that's the only thing that stands between a monster and another victim. When the verdict came, the room held its breath. Not guilty. A flash of camera bulbs, a gasp from somewhere behind her. But Ellie didn't cry. She just nodded once, and turned her back to the courtroom. She never returned to her position as sheriff. Some said she left the state. Others claimed she worked quietly with underground survivor networks, helping women escape men like Marcus Hale. One reporter tracked her down months later, outside a battered women's shelter in Idaho. She wouldn't go on record, wouldn't talk about the trial, but she did say one thing: when justice hesitates, good people get buried. I just refused to wait. Then she closed the door and disappeared again.